Hi, my name is Emily Cloke. I'm the British Consul General in Los Angeles. I'm delighted to be here today with Will Becher, Richard Phelan and Paul Kewley from Aardman Films. They are the directors and producer of Academy Award nominated film Shaun the Sheep, Farmageddon. And today we're going to revel in all things Shaun and also celebrate the brilliant UK animation industry. This conversation is special to us on a few levels. Shaun is Aardman's most successful animated character. He's become a global icon, reaching 170 countries and reaching hearts all around the world. Shaun first came to our screens in the Wallace and Gromit film Cloke, then earned his own TV series in 2007 and first movie in 2015. We're also really proud of the wider UK animation sector. It's well known for its original and eclectic storytelling and content, producing across television, feature films, websites, games, virtual, mixed and augmented reality. Much loved characters include not just Shaun the Sheep, but Wallace and Gromit, Peppa Pig, Thomas and Friends, and many more. I'd like to thank BAFTA and Netflix for their help in putting this conversation together. Will, Richard, Paul, welcome and congratulations on your Oscar nomination. What fantastic news.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So I'd like to ask you all, what brought you to work with Shaun? Will, why don't we start with you?
Well, I was a child growing up, getting interested in animation as a hobby, and Wallace and Gromit, The Wrong Trousers premiered on TV around the same time, and I fell in love with the duo and of course followed their journeys, and a couple of years later watched The Close Shave. And like most of the other people who watched it, I fell in love with that little character on screen, Shaun, who had a fairly brief appearance but stayed with me. And it was really my first visit to the studio around that time when they were filming A Close Shave. So it's always meant a lot to me.
Lovely. Richard, how about you?
So I studied animation at the National Film and Television School just outside London. And I went to work in London at another studio, and then I got approached. I made a graduation film that was screened at Aardman. And so a lot of the producers and Richard Starzak, the creator of Shaun the Sheep, the series, he saw it. And so he invited me in for an interview. And so I came and joined Shaun the Sheep in series 3 as a storyboard artist. And then series 4 as a writer. And then I joined the first Shaun movie as a senior story artist and sort of worked my way up from there as head of story on The Farmer's Llamas. And then asked to direct Farmageddon by Paul Kewley a few years ago, so it's I'm well versed in the Shaun universe.
Fantastic. And Paul, how about you?
Yeah, mine's a kind of long and circuitous route, a bit like these guys. I studied film producing in Los Angeles. Actually, I went to the University of Southern California, where I was a Fulbright scholar, and I got quite a lot of help from the British Consul General at that time and BAFTA LA. And I got invited to join Aardman in 2009. I was kind of looking for opportunity, and it worked out. But that was the first time I'd gotten involved in animation. I'd trained in live action. And so I worked with the company for a few years, and then there was an opportunity to make a Shaun movie. And I put that together, basically went out, kind of figured out the financing with the team at Aardman, and produced that one, and have been working with Shaun ever since.
And for those in the audience who haven't seen the film, Paul, could you give us a brief outline of Farmageddon, the movie?
Yes, I knew you'd throw that one at me. So in this one, it's a story about Shaun, who basically takes advantage of his position as the middle brother. He's got an elder brother, Becher, the dog, who's sitting behind Will in his picture. Yeah. And it's a story all about Shaun learning what it's like to be in Becher's shoes when an alien kind of arrives on the farm, a weird alien called Lula. and Shaun has to try and help her find her spaceship and get back home. And in the process, he gets a taste of his own medicine.
I was watching the film over the weekend, and it just really struck me as I was watching it that it couldn't be from anywhere else other than the UK. What do you think will make Shaun and the film just so uniquely British, but also such a global success?
Well, I guess if you take it back to the beginning, everything is inspired generally by things in our lives and things in the crew's lives. So our art direction and production design is very often inspired by locations around Bristol, where we are based. In fact, some of the buildings sometimes crop up in our films. And on top of that, every story that we tell from the heart, and we tell from our own experience. So we'll often sit around discussing what's happened to us as children, or what's happened to our own children. And I think inherently we bring with it a sort of British flavour. But having said that, there is a huge, as you say, a global reach. And what was really interesting when we went around with the film when it was finished is that we saw lots of our very British jokes playing out in front of European and further afield audiences, all of whom found them very funny and found them quite personal. So I think it's because we're talking about a character that doesn't speak. Everyone can identify with Shaun the sheep. That's what makes him so universal.
And on that, talking about the reactions that you've had, what has been the most touching or humorous reaction you've had to this movie? Well, I'll stay with you, but I'll ask Richard and Paul the same as well.
Yeah, well, there were so many little moments, but there's one that happened in our first test screening with a real audience, which was in a festival. So this is after we finished the film. We took it to a festival in Italy called Gifoni. It was amazing because there were 12,000 children watching this clip. And at the end, there was a Q&A session, and the Q&A sessions with kids are the best because obviously they just don't hold back. And I think the funniest reaction was one child who told us that we designed our alien wrong. And that was because he'd seen an alien and it didn't look like ours.
Oh. Richard, how about you?
I'm going to tell that anecdote. I think the most heartwarming one was our first test screening of the film, the whole film completed. And so we screened it in Reading. And it was a really magical moment because it's the first time Lula appears on camera. And so we'd been working on it for about 4 years. And so no one had seen it yet. And so, like you said, Shaun is such an established sort of character and sort of world. To introduce someone new is sort of quite daunting. And it was so wonderful because she sort of emerges from the shadows, and you could feel everyone on tenterhooks sort of leaning into the screen. And there was this sort of audible sort of gasp when she appears that sort of like everyone in the audience just fell in love with her. And it was just a really, really magical moment. I remember just turning to Will going, we did it, because it was really, you don't know how they'll react. And also if they don't like her, we can't do anything about it now. So it's just a really, really fun moment.
Oh, that sounds lovely. And Paul, how about you?
Well, lots of similar situations that the guys have talked about. We always find that with the audience, the kids actually say the most intelligent things about the films often. But we were living still in Bristol at the time when the film came out, and we had a family an Egyptian family who'd moved in, and they had a little 5-year-old who couldn't speak English. And she went to see the film, and she became completely obsessed about Lula, and was sending drawings she'd done to me by my wife and son. And every time she get more and more elaborate stories about her, and she was completely obsessed. So she ended up buying a Lula toy that we had, and she still sleeps with it by all accounts. And so, just finding out somebody that we knew who couldn't speak English was so obsessed about it was an amazing feeling.
That's lovely. And it just goes, as you say, that global appeal, how the characters can really find their way in hearts of people around the world.
Yeah.
Just Going back to what you were all actually saying about children, I was seeing on social media that there's lots of examples of Shaun appreciation from parents, actually, talking about how both parents and children loved watching Shaun together. How do you create something that is funny for both 5 and 50-year-olds? Will, what's the secret of your success?
Well, again, I think it goes back to the fact that we're often trying to make ourselves laugh. So we're not necessarily sort of being too scientific about who the joke is for. It's more who can, out of the group of us, we'll often get into a group and spitball ideas and brainstorm and just try and come up with the funniest way of a particular joke playing out. And that's what does it for us. It's trying to find the best punchline or the best setup and then build on the comedy. We had input from Mark Burton, and he was obviously one of the writers and co-directors on the first film. He wrote this film, and just very well versed at sort of comedy timing and setup. So between us, we would keep honing and chipping away at it. But it can be very hard in a long form like features. You can have a really good idea which everyone loves straight away, but after 4 months of seeing it over and over again, it starts to lose its appeal, and it's really hard not to fight the urge to change it, because we sort of get numb to it, I suppose.
The style of filmmaking is, I think, incredibly expressive, and a lot of the story is told through expressions, music, actions, particularly given that there isn't the dialogue. How do you go about creating those little details that tell Shaun and the other characters' stories? Richard?
Well, like Will said, we pitch ideas to each other, and then it begins storyboarding. So we have a team of story artists who draw every beat of an action, and then we'll screen it and sort of see if it plays and if people laugh or if they understand what Shaun is trying to explain to Lula using just expressions. And we go through this process many, many times. I think each shot is probably drawn again and again, at least 5 or 6 times, some of them 40 times to get it right. And then even after all that, we then talk to the animators and we rehearse it. So we act it all out again on video camera with them. So we go through the sort of the bodily motions of all the characters, and then the animators will sort of take the storyboard and this live action reference and just sort of like imbue it with life, and just sort of, they find all the magical sort of nuance, because there's sort of, the puppets are so small, the Shaun the Sheep puppet, they're just able to sort of capture all these sort of tiny human emotions within it, which is just sort of quite spellbinding to watch.
Fantastic, thank you. Paul, just turning to the wider animation sector, so you've worked in the US and in the UK. What do you think are the unique strengths of filmmaking or animation that the UK brings to the table?
I think the UK's film industry as a whole, is incredibly powerful because of the storytellers and the technicians that exist in the UK, and I think animation is exactly the same. Is that people are versed in the UK in that style of storytelling, and it's slightly different to the American sensibility. So when you look at something like Mr. Bean, which is being both live action and animation, it tends to travel really well because we love our slapstick and our kind of sense of absurd humor. And I think Peppa Pig is another example of that. Is that Peppa Pig for me is something I can sit down and watch on my own. I still love it. I think it's amazing. So I think it's really that melting pot of people who are very good at what they do, and film schools like the National Film and TV School where Rich went, you're intrinsic to that.
Thank you, and I'm with you on Peppa Pig. I have a toddler, so I also appreciate the brilliance and the humour of programmes like that. Richard, the UK, I think, is known for the quality of its workforce and how it nurtures talent, and I know that's something that's very important for Aardman too, Aardman Films. How does Aardman work with the next generation of filmmakers?
Well, Aardman, we've set up the Aardman Academy, which offers courses and workshops in all the different aspects. So model making and animation and storyboarding are some of the classes that are sort of currently in the process. We also have internships at the studio. So we have an internship in the story department where I started out, where we look for not only graduates, but we also headhunt online for people who do that sort of work and sort of like post their stuff out there. We're sort of quite actively trying to find it. And more recently, we're trying to sort of create more outreach into younger people, younger kids who maybe don't know that animation is a career. It's really important to us now, because I think once we go to animation classes and animation courses, but it's like they've already got the animation bug, and so we're really sort of keen to try and show that like a career in filmmaking and the arts is actually a really viable career choice in the UK.
Thank you. So turning to the weekend and to your Oscar nomination, just going back to the moment when you heard that you were nominated, you know, what was the first thing you did, Will?
Well, obviously we knew that our film was in the BAFTAs last year, and because of the way the timings fell, it didn't get released in America in time for last year's Academy Awards. So, you know, we knew there was a chance, but being a year old at that point, and a lot of films coming out during the year, I guess we weren't holding our breath, because it was, you know, it's quite a long time ago we finished. But I got an email out of the blue about midday. I was actually in the studio animating Shaun at the time, and it was very surreal. After I'd told my wife, I went to the shop and I bought a packet of Maltesers to celebrate. That seemed like the most suitable thing to do.
Fantastic. Richard, what did you do when you heard you got the nomination?
I was also in the studio. I was working on a different production, and I got a text from Will that just said, "Where?" And so I was like, I don't know what he's talking about. So I had to sort of go onto Twitter to check. And then like, I watched the sort of the live when they announced it, and I had sort of a slightly out of body feeling where I don't think any of us expected it. And so it was really mad. So I went and told my production assistant, and sort of she came in to watch it just to sort of double check. But it was really gutted because we couldn't high five or shake hands or anything because of COVID rules. So we just sort of went, "Well done." And then I went outside to find Will and these Maltesers.
Yeah, I bought Rich some too.
Yeah,
that was kind of you. Paul, how about you? What did you do when you heard that you got the nomination?
Well, you know, I'm in Los Angeles now, so I didn't actually wake up for the announcement. I'm slightly superstitious as well. I think I did it with the first film. I kind of ignored it, so I missed the announcement. I was told in the canteen at Aardman while I was eating my lunch. And this time, my wife woke me up and gave me a cup of coffee and said, "You're nominated." And I thought she was winding me up. I thought it was a joke. So once I'd woken up and kind of taken it in, I couldn't quite get over it. But it was weird because normally you want to get together and have a celebration, but right now we couldn't. So they were eating Maltesers and I was drinking a cup of coffee.
Good stuff. And Paul, you're in LA at the moment. Will, Richard, where will you be for the ceremony?
we'll be in London. They're creating a London hub. So we'll be at the BFI South Bank. I don't know much more than that at the moment. But they're trying to create little international pockets of sort of filmmakers who can't make it because of COVID restrictions. So we'll be watching it in this BFI South Bank as much as I know.
And my final question, just looking to the future. So you finished the film in 2019. What have you each been working on since, and what have we got to look forward to? Will, let's start with you.
Well, what a year it's been. I've had all sorts of things going on, but sort of mid-lockdown, I found myself with a miniature studio which I built at home in my living room, so I could carry on working despite the studio being shut. And that was quite surreal. And then I've been working on a film idea, which I'm hoping over the next couple of years to write into something viable. And I've been animating on this Shaun Christmas special, which is coming out this year on Netflix.
Fantastic. We look forward to it. Paul, what have you been working on since the Shaun the Sheep Farmageddon film finished?
Well, so I worked with Aardman and continue to work with Aardman on a few things, but as I said, I moved to Los Angeles in February, right in the middle of the pandemic, which seemed like a really good idea. And I've joined Illumination Entertainment, who make the Minions and Despicable Me. So I was looking for a new challenge, to be honest, and I've got an American wife and son. So we're back in LA and trying to figure things out right now here.
Fantastic. And Richard?
I've been working for the past 18 months on Chicken Run 2. And so we're well underway. And hopefully in a few years' time, it will be released on Netflix.
Good stuff. Well, Paul, Richard, thank you so much for joining UK in LA today. Best of luck for the weekend, and thank you for bringing us this wonderful movie.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching.